Imagine living in one of the coldest and most remote places on Earth where temperatures can plummet below 50 degrees below zero, and any mistake could be deadly. While the rest of the world stays warm in cozy homes, the Chukchi people face a harsh period of intense cold, resting side by side under thick reindeer hides to conserve body heat. But their way of dealing with freezing temperatures isn't the only remarkable thing about this group. They rely entirely on these animals for transportation, food, and shelter. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our posts. Without further ado, let's go. What really catches the attention of many are their unusual customs. Among the Chukchi, offering one's own wife to a visitor is seen as an act of honor and trust. This practice, called shared partnership, is not understood as infidelity, but as a way to strengthen bonds and seal alliances. Furthermore, marriages can happen in very peculiar ways, such as multiple unions, and in some cases, a man could capture a woman from another community and take her against her will. The Chukchi inhabit the easternmost edge of the Russian Federation in one of the most inhospitable areas on the globe. The climate there is severe, and the cold is amplified by intense winds. The landscape is made up of ice-covered terrain and vast frozen plains that reach the sea. Trees are almost non-existent, and vegetation is limited to small shrubs and lichens that face harsh conditions for most of the year. These people have learned to survive the cold with strategies that go far beyond thick coats or reinforced tents. From childhood, their bodies adapt to the environment, and their entire routine is shaped to avoid the risks brought by the extreme conditions. Even the way they rest follows a logic aimed at conserving heat. It is not enough to wrap yourself in blankets. You have to share the space with other people. By sleeping together under thick covers, the heat generated by their bodies accumulates, warming the environment and preventing frostbite. This tradition is a crucial tactic for resisting the cruelest winter. In addition, there is a very clear perception of when it is appropriate to go out and when it is safer to stay in the tents. Outdoor activities are organized according to the weather, and there is no exposure to the cold unless absolutely necessary. Even hunting and travel are carefully planned to avoid wasting energy and reduce risks. Another striking feature is the way they move. For those unfamiliar with the region, walking on snow can be tiring and risky, but the Chukchi know the ground well and manage to move efficiently without wasting heat. Their actions follow a calm rhythm, avoiding efforts that could compromise their breathing or blood circulation. Reindeer are much more than a source of sustenance. They are the basis of existence. These animals provide transportation, food ingredients, and materials for protection and shelter. Without them, crossing the frozen terrain would be impossible. The meat is eaten fresh, cured, or fermented to last longer. The milk, which is high in calories, is essential for maintaining vitality in the cold. The skin is used to make clothes and blankets, and even the tents are structured with materials derived from the animals. The bones are turned into utensils, and the ligaments are used as sewing threads. What sets the Chukchi apart from other Arctic peoples is their use of reindeer as mounts. While most indigenous communities use dogs to pull sleds, they train reindeer to be ridden, which is rare in this type of territory. This innovation allows for longer journeys with greater agility, facilitating the transport of their families and belongings, maintaining their nomadic way of life. The bond between the Chukchi and the reindeer is so deep that caring for these animals is part of daily life from a young age. Learning to lead them, milk them, and understand their habits is an essential task for those who grow up in that environment. The Chukchi way of life varies according to location. Some live in the interior, raising reindeer and following the pasture routes, constantly moving to ensure food for the animals. Their dwellings, called yarangas, are built of wood and covered with hide to keep warm. The interior space is simple, providing an area for sleeping, cooking, and protection. Everything is made to be easily dismantled and transported. Those who live near the coast adopt a completely different way of life, based on hunting at sea. They hunt large aquatic animals, such as whales and walruses, bravely facing the frozen sea. They use large boats made of wood, covered with stretched hides, to approach their prey. The work is collective, and the harpoon needs to be thrown with precision. No part of the animal is discarded. The meat feeds, the fat warms, and the skin is turned into clothing and insulation. The Chukchi community functions in a cooperative way. There is no supreme ruler. Decisions are made collectively, with the advice of elders and more experienced hunters being taken into consideration. Another striking point is the lack of rigidity in social roles. Men and women share roles. They can go out hunting and carry weapons, while men take care of the reindeer, prepare meals, and raise the children. Flexibility allows everyone to contribute to the group efficiently without being bound by traditional expectations. There is also a specific group within society called soft men, male individuals who prefer to perform tasks considered feminine, such as sewing or taking care of the house. Unlike other cultures where this would be cause for exclusion, among the Chukchi, it is normal. Each person chooses the role that best suits their profile, without this affecting their importance in the group. Marriage among the Chukchi has always been related to practical matters and alliances between families. In many cases, parents chose partners, but the woman's opinion was respected. If she didn't want to, she could flee to another village, where she would be welcomed. It was also common for a suitor to offer reindeer as compensation to the family of his future wife, but this did not guarantee acceptance. She could refuse or flee before the ceremony. In some situations, forced marriage by capture occurred when a man took a woman from another tribe. This type of union usually resulted in agreements, demands for compensation, or even the return of the woman if she did not want to stay. Still, relationships between the Chukchi tended to be more flexible than in many cultures of the time. Polygamy was tolerated, but not accessible to everyone. Only men with a lot of resources could support more than one wife. Each partner needed to have guaranteed security, shelter, and sustenance. Thus, having multiple partners was a challenge that few faced. And even in these situations, women had the right to choose whether or not to accept this condition. Often wives formed support networks, sharing responsibilities and caring for children together. Among the Chukchi, welcoming visitors went beyond offering food and shelter. There was the custom of shared friendship, where the host could offer his companion to a guest as a sign of deep respect. This was seen as a gesture of trust between men and a way to seal alliances. Refusing the offer could lead to discontent and even conflict. If a pregnancy resulted from these interactions, the child was automatically accepted as a member of the family without any contestation. Biological paternity was not the most relevant. The essential thing was to ensure that the new being was raised in a stable and protected environment. This type of practice also applied in cases of prolonged absence of the partner. During long hunts, it was common for a relative or friend to temporarily take over the care of the wife, ensuring her safety. Although they may seem unusual, such customs were part of a cultural system that prioritized the group and interpersonal bonds. Over time and the influence of other cultures, many of these habits have been abandoned, but they still live on in memory as traits of a society that always put the collective above all else. In addition, there was a group within the community known as soft men, male individuals who preferred to perform tasks commonly associated with the female universe, such as sewing, caring for the young, or organizing household activities. Unlike many civilizations where this could be a reason for judgment, among the Chukchi, it was faced with naturalness. Each member occupied the space in which they felt most fulfilled, without this diminishing their value to the group. The existence of the Chukchi did not revolve around prestige or dominance, but rather resistance and collaboration. Everyone had their relevance, and what really made a difference was individual dedication for the collective good. Among the Chukchi, marriage has always been associated with functional and family aspects. In ancient times, many unions were planned by parents who chose a suitor based on alliances between groups or the need to strengthen the group. However, unlike other cultures in which the woman had no choice, among the Chukchi, her decision was taken into account. If she did not want that union, there was the possibility of escaping to another community where she would be welcomed and protected. Another common custom was union through the delivery of reindeer. An interested suitor could offer a certain number of these animals to the girl's family as a kind of wedding gift. The larger his possession, the greater the chances of obtaining a favorable marriage. However, this did not imply obligation. The young woman could refuse or, in more extreme cases, flee before the union was consummated. There was also the practice of marriage by capture, where a man could take a woman from another group by force. But unlike what it may seem, This did not mean that she would be condemned to stay with him against her will. In many episodes, this type of union resulted in agreements between families who could demand reparations or animals in return. If the woman did not want to stay, she could be rescued by her relatives or even decide to stay if she accepted her new reality. Even with these practices, affective bonds between the Chukchi were more flexible than in many cultures of the same era. Polygamy was tolerated, but it was not something accessible to everyone. Maintaining more than one companion required means and commitment, which only a few could sustain. Only men with greater prestige and possessions could maintain multiple wives, as they had the responsibility to provide food, protection, and shelter to all. As reindeer herds were indispensable for sustenance, a man with many of these animals had a better chance of expanding his family. Despite this, such a practice was not common, as constituting a large family structure required great effort. In a land where life was already extremely hard, few dared to follow this path. Furthermore, forming a union with several women did not depend only on male will. Wives also had the right to accept or reject the situation and could even seek family support to leave the union if they did not feel comfortable. Even when the multiple family materialized, this did not mean conflict between the women. In many situations, they shared the daily tasks and cared for the children together, creating a support network among themselves. The most important thing was to ensure that everyone had a minimally secure existence, regardless of the composition of the home. For most Chukchi, the most common marriage model was one in which a couple formed a domestic unit. Polygamy, although accepted, was more of a possibility than a norm, and its success depended on the man's ability to support multiple dependents without compromising overall survival. Reception among the Chukchi went beyond simply offering food or shelter. There was a practice called shared partnership, where a man could introduce his wife to a guest or companion as a sign of consideration and loyalty. This behavior was not interpreted as infidelity, but rather as a demonstration of bonding between men and as a way to ensure trust and unity within the group. This tradition went beyond common generosity. The act of sharing one's wife symbolized mutual respect and recognition of the visitor's importance. To deny such a gesture could be understood as dishonor, something that could cause tension and even discord among members. In an environment where help and union were crucial to the maintenance of life, preserving healthy relationships was a priority. If a woman became pregnant during these interactions, the child was automatically accepted by the husband without any questioning. For the Chukchi, the essential thing was not the genetic origin, but the certainty that the baby would be raised in a safe and structured environment. The continuity of the collective was more important than personal matters. In addition, at certain times, this custom manifested itself when the man needed to be away for long periods. If he left for prolonged hunts or distant ventures, it was common for a friend or relative to temporarily take on the role of companion to the wife, ensuring her safety and comfort. This type of support prevented women from being helpless or at risk during difficult periods. Even though this practice may sound strange to many peoples, among the Chukchi, it was part of a social system that valued the group and interpersonal bonds. With the passing of decades and the impact of external cultures, these traditions have become less frequent, but they still live on in the memory of the people as fundamental elements of a community logic based on survival, sharing, and the strength of human relationships. During the 19th century, an explorer from Russia crossed the icy regions of extreme northeastern Siberia and had an experience that would mark his life. He already knew that the Chukchi had traditions that were different from those of the West, but he was not prepared for what he would face that night. After a long and tiring journey, he was welcomed by a local family. He received hot food, shelter, and an unusual proposal. The head of the household, as a sign of welcome, introduced his wife and made it clear that, if he wished, the stranger could spend the night with her. The visitor was astonished. For him, raised in a culture where marriage was exclusive and inviolable, that gesture seemed unimaginable. However, in that environment, refusing something so symbolic could be offensive. Observing more closely, he noticed that the woman was neither embarrassed nor uncomfortable. On the contrary, she acted naturally, as if it were part of the routine. That experience profoundly challenged his beliefs. Could it be that the concepts of right and wrong were universal, or did they depend on the place and culture? What was unthinkable to him was simply a way of keeping connections alive within the collective for those people. Even without accepting the invitation, the visitor never forgot that night. It transformed his way of seeing the world, showing that what may seem absurd to some is simply part of life for others. He returned to his country with stories that many found hard to believe, but above all, with a new understanding of the different ways in which human beings build their societies, protect each other, and ensure the continuity of their ways of life. If you liked today's video, please support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Your engagement is what keeps us going. Don't forget to check out the video that's on your screen now, and I'm sure you'll find it fascinating. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.